Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Midwest City Council meeting for January 24th, 2017. I now call this meeting to order, and I see that we do have a quorum present. Mr. Sullivan, could you come forward and offer our invocation, please? Please stand.
Would you bow with me, please? Gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for this occasion. Father, we thank you for this wonderful city that we live and work and raise our families in. And Father, we thank you for these servants, these public servants that have items before them tonight. Father, we ask a special measure of your wisdom and your discernment be upon them. Father, I ask that personal agendas be set aside. I ask that the decisions that are made be those that would benefit the good of the whole. Father, we thank you so much for those men and women who are all over the world tonight sacrificing and serving this great nation. Give them peace and comfort and their families as well while they're away. Thank you so much for the ultimate example of service and sacrifice that you and your Son gave for us. Thank you, Jesus, for being willing to go to the cross for us. We ask all this in your Son's holy name. Amen.
I do want to introduce two ROTC cadets from Carl Albert High School, Desiree Henderson and Marissa Baxter. Come forward to the podium. They're going to offer our pledge tonight. Both of them are seniors at Carl Albert, and both have intentions of going to the Ticket for Rose after graduation. Thank you for being here, and please lead us in the pledge.
Ready, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I recently had a birthday, so it's catching up to me.
Thank you for having us.
Okay, we'll go into the community-related announcements. Go ahead.
Just have a couple quick ones. I'd like to remind everyone that starting February 7th at the Community Center, we will start our volunteer income tax assistance program. That begins on February 7th. Also, February 18th, we'll have our famously attended our Daddy-Daughter Dance at the Reed Center. Dances, actually. And then also on February 9th at the Chamber of Commerce at 7:30 a.m. will be the Mayor's State of the City address.
Thank you, Mr. Henson. A couple of notes. We just got news that a long-standing coach in our community, Coach Gary Rose, Carl Albert High School, 43 years in Middell, 10 state championships, a good Christian man, and he's touched thousands of young men's lives throughout the years, is retiring. So good luck to Coach Rose and his future endeavors. Also, I'd like to announce that our police chief, Brandon Claves, was awarded the Clara Looper Community Service Award at the Martin Luther King breakfast last week. It's a well-deserved award. He works hard in our community, and congratulations, Chief. Also, I want to remind everybody that our 75th anniversary is kicking off. We've got a lot going on, and if you are interested, if your community group, or if you're interested as a person or a family, would like to order banners that has the 75th logo and be placed strategically throughout the city with your name, or community organization name on it. They're available through the Chamber of Commerce, and I ask that you contact them. It's going to be a great event. There's a lot more information to follow on our 75th anniversary. Any more community-oriented announcements? Hearing none, we'll move into our consent agenda. Our consent agenda, these items are placed on the consent agenda so that members of the City Council can, by unanimous consent, can approve routine agenda items by one motion. If any item proposed on the consent agenda does not meet with the approval of all council members or members of the audience would like to discuss an item, that item will be removed and heard in regular order. The chair would entertain a motion to approve.
Move to approve the consent agenda?
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any discussion? All in favor of approving the consent agenda and signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Motion passes. Thank you. Move into the discussion items of the agenda.
The first discussion item is public hearing with discussion consideration of a resolution declaring the structure located at 7203 Southeast 15th Street, a dilapidated building as defined in Title 11-22-112C1 Oklahoma State Statutes, and setting dates to demolish and remove the structure from the site. Is there anyone here in the audience here to speak to or address as a property owner or a representative for the property at 7203 Southeast 15th Street? Okay. And we would recommend that you proceed as provided for in the resolution.
Move to approve?
I have a motion. Second. I have a second. Any discussion on this item? Any discussion? Chair to entertain a vote. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? The motion passes. Next item.
Next item is CA 75, public hearing with discussion consideration of an appeal to Section 9-394E of the Municipal Code, which states that freestanding signs shall be brought into compliance with the ordinance at the time any modifications or repairs are made to the sign located at 9900 Southeast 15th Street. This item was heard at the last council meeting. However, no action was taken. The item is back before you for action. I believe the representative from the church is here and may want to visit with you all. So.
Good evening.
Could we have your name and address, please?
I'm sorry, Carol McKee, 9412 South Caldwell Drive. Okay?
Yeah.
All right. First of all, I want to thank you guys. Thank you for serving our community like you do. I know it's a tough job sometimes. You have a lot of hard decisions to make, and I know especially this past year was a hard one for you. And I want you to know that we pray for you guys on a regular basis in the decisions that you make, and we support you in what you do. One of the things that my husband has said many times is the further we go up in leadership, the fewer rights and privileges we have, that we have to give up things. And we don't always have the luxury of giving our side to why we make some of the decisions we make, but we make the best decisions that we know how to make. And that's why we're coming before you on this sign. We mentioned 2 weeks ago when I was here that we had adopted a policy with our staff is to do for some what you wish you could do for everyone. And I want to give you a little background of where we came up with that. We had gone to a leadership conference, and Lee Cockrell was the speaker there, and he was head over Disney. He had written a book, 39 Customer Rules, and he was such a phenomenal speaker that as a staff we began to go through that book. And one of the things that he had in there as one of the customer rules was to be flexible. And I just have a little paragraph I want to read to you from that book, he said, it's easier to adopt a zero flexibility policy. If you're rigid, you don't have to listen to them so much. You don't have to think about what they will tell you. You don't have to make decisions about specific issues or think up creative ways to handle unusual problems. But it's not the way to build trust and loyalty. You can accomplish that only by being flexible enough to treat each customer and situation as an individual, and as an important one at that. You know, that was a revelation to us, because we had some policies that we had put in place that we felt like we had a valid reason to have those policies, but it wasn't always fun enforcing those policies. And we thought we had to, because we had to be consistent. Everybody, you know, if we do for one, we have to do the same thing and make the same rule for everyone. But after we studied that book, we said, let's just lighten up. Let's give ourselves permission to be flexible when we can. And after we did that, then we began to relook at some of those policies and adjust the policies a little bit so that as they were written in such a way that we could allow flexibility. Another thing that my husband says all the time is that life's too short and leadership's too hard not to be fun. And I can tell you that at the end of the day, it is a lot more fun when we allow ourselves to say yes as many times as we can and only say no when we have to. And again, we understand your position. We understand it completely. However, when we look at this whole scheme of things with this sign, it's 2 feet. It's only 2 feet too tall. It's a great looking sign. We just painted it just this last spring. We're wanting to improve it and make it look better, and it's $7,000 just to lower the sign those 2 feet. And so that's why we're asking permission from you all to let us, you know, be flexible there and allow us to make this modification without lowering the sign. As a church, we're constantly trying to bless our community. We're constantly looking for opportunities to do something for our community. We do things for our fire and police departments. Just recently, we bought trauma packs to give to our police officers who did not have them. We do things for the schools. We provide backpacks and school supplies for the kids. We have a Teacher of the Year banquet that's coming up in just a couple of weeks that they came to us several years ago, 4 years ago actually, and they said, we have this presentation for the Teacher of the Year and we have a reception for them, but the place that we have to do it is so small that they can't invite any of their family. Would you allow us to use your facility to do our reception? And we said, we want to do more than that. Let us bless you. And so what we do is we set up our auditorium, we take all the tables, all the seats out, we put up tables and chairs, we cater in a meal. We spend around $4,000 or more every year to do this for our teachers. And we feel like those type of things are a better use of the money than having to lower the structure of the sign. And so I just respectfully ask you guys to consider voting in favor of us modifying it without lowering it. We support you either way. We promise we won't say anything ugly about you if you say no. You see, I didn't bring in a group of people here with me to gang up against you, because it's not an us against you thing. We know you're making the best decisions that you know how to make.
2 weeks ago when we spoke, one of the things that we'd asked is if you'd get back with staff and look at if you could get an existing, a new digital sign that would fit in the existing box.
We could do that. But if we're spending $40,000 to improve our sign, we really want to make more of an improvement than staying within that same dimension. And so we want to go larger if we can. We'll pay the $7,000 if we have to lower the sign, but we would rather not.
Right.
I think I've made my position pretty clear on this, but I've gone by there during the day and gone by there during the night to look at this sign and what they're talking about. I've also read over the sign ordinance many times, and the purpose and objectives that were laid out in the ordinance when it was written, and there's 10 of them in there. It talks about the objectives of our signed ordinance. A couple of them: enhance the aesthetic quality of life for citizens, prohibit signs that create a blight on the community, preserve and protect public property, and there's several more. by granting this variance, we are not taking away from any of those 10 objectives. I realize that there's discussion about whether we should do for one and not do for another, but based off of just the facts that were presented today in this one sign, nobody else's sign, this one sign, I'm going, unless there's any more, when the discussion is over, I plan on making a motion to approve it.
Not that I'm against having, and you're right, it does hit all those 10 things. The one thing that I want us to be aware of, like I said upstairs, is this could make it more difficult down the road if we turn another variance down. But the other thing I don't want to do is make it more difficult for staff. When we had a restaurant come into an existing establishment, they wanted to basically do the same thing. They were told you have to bring your sign into compliance. Now, they did not ask for a variance, but they went along with staff recommendations. I don't want the staff to have to second guess if they follow the ordinance or not follow the ordinance and follow the variance. They need to, in my opinion, have, and the ordinance is pretty easy to follow. It can be difficult for you guys with the extra money. But that's the rules that the staff go by. And so for me, I'm looking at it too. Are we going to make it more difficult going down the road if we turn a variance down? Fact patterns are relatively the same. And two, are we making staff's life more difficult?
My intent, trust me, is not to make Billy's job any harder, but on that same argument, in the ordinance, it gives the citizens of this city the ability to do what she's doing right now. And it puts us, the people on this horseshoe, in a position where we have to make a determination on this one particular sign. It's not saying every other sign that's going to come in front of us is going to be voted for. This one sign, they've come to us and they've asked us, and then it's our responsibility. And it doesn't say anything bad about Billy's people, because I know they jumped through hoops on this and every other thing they give us. And I certainly don't want to do anything that would make his job any harder. God knows it's bad enough, but I just, on this particular circumstance, I think it's, in my personal opinion, is that we should, when the discussion is over, I plan on making a motion for it to pass.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? The chair would entertain a motion.
I make a motion for it to grant the variance.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Me?
Any abstentions? Ma'am, your variance has been granted.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Next item up for discussion.
Next item is discussion. Would be discussion, consideration of budget amendments to reduce appropriations for fiscal year 2016-2017 due to declining revenues.
Mr. Bebout, you want to approach the podium, please?
I did. My name is Doug Bebout. I live at 13,200 Shirley Lane. I just had a clarifying question. In the packet, there's the resolution, and I know it's the intent of staff to make a 1.5% reduction. But my question is on page 2, the second page of the resolution that I guess is going to get signed if you guys vote to approve this. You have the fire fund 040-6410 being reduced to 165,000 and change. And then further down the page, you have fire capitalization at 041 showing a reduction of an additional 171,000 and change. I don't believe that's the intent, but when I read this, it looks like by signing this, the council is approving or at least paving the way for staff to make that full 3% if they feel it's necessary without coming back to the council. Just on that second page,
Yeah,
it looks like two separate reductions.
Doug, I don't believe that that's what it's doing. What we're doing is reducing the transfer out from the 40 account, which is the operations budget for the fire department, and reducing that transfer over to capital outlay.
Right, and it looks good in the appendix. I mean, that math bears true, Mr. Henson, in the appendix. But it just looks like in the resolution that it's, I mean, I understand that the total 1.5% reduction to the fire department is gonna be 171,000 and some change. But the way that it looks like it's written in the resolution that's to be signed, approved, voted on and approved and signed by the mayor, it looks like two instances, or 165,000 and change, and then again 171,000 and change. Again, I submit to you that in the appendix, yes, the math bears true that you're reducing the 165 transfer plus 5,000 or 6,000 and change and some other issues for a total of 171. But again, to the resolution, it looks like a total of
I understand.
282,000.
Well, I don't know how to fix it right now, but unless our finance director can do that on the fly, so.
The way we do the budgets, we do budget the transfers too as an expenditure in that fund. So, and that's why it's in there for Fund 40. It's actually the 165,804 is what's going to be reduced in that resolution for Fund 40. And then in Fund 41, we're reducing it by 171 because they were asked to make 5,000 and something in cuts, and then they had the 165,000. They're going to have to reduce their spending in that fund because they're not going to get that transferred funds over there once we make.
Okay, so it's not a double book.
It's not a double book. It's just how the transfers are in there too. So we're going to reduce that transfer. It's not going to happen. So that money's going to stay in Fund 40 of the fire fund, and then Fund 41 is the one that's actually going to have to take the real expenditure cut, which your plan is not to buy the rescue squad.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Like I said, in the appendix where it's all broken out in the spreadsheet, it makes perfect sense. But then when you turn to the resolution,
Well,
it just looked like a
This
double
one's the
book.
same, but a little bit more
Well,
detailed.
and I don't want to drag it out, other than, for the record, it is the intent to just simply reduce budgets by 1.5% in the resolution, and then if we have to go forward from there, it'll come back to the body again as another recommendation.
That's correct.
Thank you, sir.
Can she stay up there for just a minute?
I dropped
Because this is
stuff.
question time.
Thank you.
Don't go anywhere.
Oh.
Not.
Me?
Yeah, just
Okay.
so I understand,
Uh-huh.
okay? On, like, community development, it says they're reducing $29,000
Yes.
wages. But is that a position, or what is that?
That is a position. I believe, Billy, that's yours. Is it the program manager position that they have open right now? That would be not filling it?
Okay, not filling it means we're not filling it right now. They're not losing that spot, right?
It's open now. It's not, somebody would, that's a vacant position right now.
Okay, but he's not losing that position. He's not gonna fill it, so it's basically salary savings. He's not losing that slot.
That's correct.
Because
Correct.
if the
Still trying to
revenue
save it,
goes back
yes.
up, that's,
Yes,
that's what.
exactly.
Okay, and then, like in the streets and parks, there's $14,000 on salary. That's the same thing with, that's a position too?
Wages, that's part-time, and Vaughn had indicated that for that $14,000, he was gonna forego hiring seasonal employees.
Okay. Now, if he doesn't hire seasonal employees, is that gonna task our full-time people more?
Vaughn?
And this is just educational, guys. It's not picking it. I'm just,
We have had a hard time, Councilman, for the last several summers, finding summer help. Those are summer employees. Usually we hire between 3 and 5 part-time college students, high school students to mow and weed eat, do things like that. we've had a difficult time even finding people that want to work, do that kind of thing these days for $8 an hour. So, yeah, will some folks have to pick up some slack here and there? Yes, but it's not going to create an incredible amount of hardship on us, no.
And then I think it was $10,000 was for contractual deal at the pool. Is that gonna fall, is that gonna affect them?
Are we still in the street department?
Yeah, streets and parks?
Contractual is simply a line item that we use to pay for a lot of contractual services. Could be anything from maintenance on a road to, there's a variety of things that were paid out of contractual.
Okay.
We are simply reducing places where we think the choose my words carefully here.
No,
I don't
it's
want-
fine. You're fine. I know where you're going. It's fine.
We know where we can sacrifice some things, not purchase some things, or
Okay.
do certain projects and things like that, and those are some areas where we can just forego some purchases and some expenses maybe till next year or till the economics improve. We also have a position open in the street department right now, and it's a slower time of year for us, honestly, in the winter, and that's creating some savings in our salaries and benefits accounts. We are realizing some savings there. So in the spring, we just bought $6,000 worth of salt that we haven't had to buy in a number of years. So hopefully in the spring, if with some savings and salaries and benefits, if Mr. Henson allows me to do so, I may be able to move some money out of some of those accounts back into some of these and still make the bottom line. We will make the bottom line at the end of the year.
That slot that you say it's open right now, is that a full-time slot?
Yes, it is, sir.
You are not losing that slot. You're just
No,
not.
sir.
You're just not filling it.
No, sir.
Okay.
It's a slow time of year for us, and we have not been told by the city manager we are to hold it open. We're doing that at our level, at Public Works, at the department head level, because it is a slow time of year for us in the street department. When the grass starts growing, then things pick up significantly, and we're going to hold the line on hiring that position.
And that's what, one of the questions I'm trying to get at is make sure that there's no misunderstanding. We're not losing slots.
No, sir.
We're just not filling them, right?
Correct.
Okay, I'll go to the police stuff now.
Please, okay.
Separation pay, there's 32,000.
That they had-
Can you explain those numbers? Because there's
They
several
had two
education.
officers who retired, and so they had to pay it. That one, they actually were increasing it and had to decrease some other accounts by a little more because they had two officers retire that had been with the city for a long time, and they have very large payouts to them for their leave.
Okay, so they're holding some slots open too.
Two.
And the fire department is holding some
No,
slots.
not, well, yes, are you? They aren't, not in suppression.
Okay.
Pat, the way ours worked out was that we did, in our budget coming from the 040 account, we had to transfer to capital that we put in that equated up to $212,000. So whenever we were asked to make the cut for the for the $165,000, we were able to take the money back out that had already transferred into the capital, bring it back and reduce that amount, and then go ahead and make the other $5,000 cut. So it didn't affect any positions or anything, but from the budget, when we rebalanced, the fire prevention or pub ed specialist position has not been filled. But that cut doesn't reflect
Yeah, that
that
cut's
dollar
not in
amount
here.
whatsoever. It's just on my transfers from my operating budget to capital budget only.
Councilman, what we did also was, as we were going through the process with ESCI, we wanted to make sure that the starting point in analysis of future expenditures and future revenues, that we were accurate using this year's number. And so we had some, when we went into the budget process last year, and when the budget was approved, we didn't put in, for instance, the changes on going from the number of training majors to one, okay? And then we didn't have the cost of living that was approved. And so we went back in and rebalanced and revisited all that and came back to within, I mean, it was really kind of surprising that when it was all said and done, we were within like $5,000 of where we start, of where it just moved. There was some money that was moved around into these different categories. So the majority of the savings that how the fire department addressed theirs had a lot to do with the capital outlay.
It's
transfer.
all from that.
Yeah.
It's just transferring, they're just gonna eliminate that transfer over to their capital fund.
And that's basically, the majority of that is the rescue squad that was budgeted, that since we've put the engine back in service, we're not gonna be buying that rescue squad.
What, and this is, and I'm for this, these are just questions. Things get better in a couple months. What is the process, or what is the mechanism, or what is the priority on the positions? Who gets filled first, second? How does that work?
Well, I think we will look at this comprehensively in a couple months if things turn around. And to say that which one comes first, I think that we will move forward on all those that we feel that the budget allows for, or the additional revenues allow for.
Please don't take this, this is all new to me, so this is why I'm asking.
Well,
All right.
and we haven't done this before, so this is new to us
Yes,
as well.
it
It's
is.
new. I read this stuff ahead of time.
And one thing that is confusing, like with what Doug was asking about, is that when there's a transfer that's being eliminated, it does kind of show up in there twice because it's pitting two funds. So that does look confusing. You have any more questions for me? Okay. Anyone else?
Any further discussion on the item D3?
Make a motion, pass.
Second.
I have a motion and I have a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Next item up for discussion.
Discussion and consideration of approving and adopting a new ordinance making it an offense to limit the line of sight into and out of convenience stores, providing for definitions, setting a penalty, providing for codification, providing for severability, providing for repeal of ordinances in conflict, and declaring an emergency. Mayor?
Mr. Owens, you want to approach the podium? You signed up to talk on this item. Please state your name and address for us, Mr. Owens.
Roy Owens, 115 South Westminster.
Yes, sir.
Gentlemen and ladies, I've been speaking at length with one of your community service officers, Officer Brenham. Some of the things that he's saying are being put forth on this. You know, I don't know if any of you have retail sales experience. I have almost 40 years. Like every other job, fire, police, whatever, there's certain things you follow to do. I mean, I see this about declining revenues. I think some of the rules y'all are talking about enforcing is gonna hurt your revenues even more. You know,
What has he told you, Mr. Owens, so we can clarify?
talking about realigning our shelving and everything, turning it around completely awry to what it is now, so that they can have line of sight into the store. I guess, you know, I understand the intent because I also have law enforcement experience. I think it goes a little far. I think, and I'm sure we're all aware of some of the things that have happened in Midwest City here lately, the shootings, the robberies. There's a certain amount of people that's gonna do that no matter what. I don't see that some of the things that I'm being led to believe are gonna be put forth on this, none of those would have cured that, any of those situations. People are gonna do it. They're wanting us to realign our shelving, you know, retail sales, you set up stores in a certain way, flow of customers, ease, safety for my employees. You know, they're telling me to turn my shelving a different way. It's set up the way it is now so that my employees can see who's in the store. If they're shoplifting, trying to hide, doing something, my employees can see this all the way to the back wall because my shelving runs perpendicular to my counter. They're instructing me that I need to turn it the other way so that if an officer drives by, he can see down the, that's not gonna work, quite honestly.
Mr. Owens, I'm kind of the author of this. and
Okay.
So that's not my intent.
Okay.
My intent is for you to clear your windows from 3 foot to 6 foot so we can see inside.
Okay.
I'm not asking you to,
And I
or any
agree.
other retailer to
Surely.
rearrange your store. And I've been to your store many times, and I don't see where rearranging your shelving would help facilitate this ordinance.
Exactly.
So,
That's,
so take a breath, that's not what my
Okay.
intent is. But our intent is obviously to improve public safety. Now, it's hard to quantify what an ordinance may or may not have
surely,
prevented.
surely.
Given the 2 instances we've had occur in Midwest City over the last, obviously, if there's something that the city can do to facilitate public safety,
Absolutely.
then I look at that as a obligation by the government to try to but not to put any extra burden on you or your business.
Surely.
So.
Well, the other question I had, we have some freestanding refrigerator boxes across the front of our storage. You've probably
Yes, sir.
noticed. I've been told those will have to go away so that they can see in the windows.
All we would ask, I'm not gonna ask you to get rid of your ice machines, that's a big part of your business. But if it does interfere with the line of sight, just ask you to move them down. You've got a pretty good front across the front, as I recall.
Yes.
Just move them down where we can look inside.
That's gonna be a problem, but we might be able to work with it.
Well, and let me put you at rest on some other thing. We're gonna be sending out notices to all the businesses in our area. We're not gonna be coming around writing tickets tomorrow.
Oh, I understand.
And we're gonna work with you in any way we possibly can to facilitate this. Because the intent of this ordinance is purely public safety, to protect you and your employees, but
Surely.
also protect our police officers when they're responding to your store.
Surely. You know, I do agree with the signage on the windows. I myself drive around because I'm basically curious what other people are
Sure.
doing. The signage blocking the windows is a problem.
It's
I don't
scary.
have a lot of that in my store for a reason. I know a lot of your officers, they come by all the time.
Yes, sir.
They can actually drive by, they can see all the way down behind my counter for a reason. Because if they don't see my clerk, I want somebody to come in there and see what's up, and they do. And, but there was just a couple of things, like I said, it was mentioned that I immediately had some heartburn with, and I thought, this is gonna be a problem.
Well, and to the benefit of Officer Branham, he was doing a survey as a request of Chief Claves long before this was ever penned. So
Oh, absolutely,
He was
yeah.
just going by.
Well,
by the
and he and I go
information
back
we got.
a ways. I've known Chief Claves for more years than I care to count. So, and we knew, and I just wanted to express some concern and ask some questions
Absolutely.
to how far it had gone, because again, some of the things I was hearing,
Well, you know, that's the best way to cure rumor and conjecture. is come
innuendo
through
and,
the source.
yes, sir.
And I appreciate you doing that. I truly do.
One of the things that Chief and I had talked, I said, I got the solution, Chief. Hire 10,000 officers and put one of them in every business in Midwest City. He just,
I'm sure the gentleman to my right would have an issue with that.
he just kind of walked away from me. He didn't have a whole lot. Like, you and I both know that's impossible. But,
Yes, sir.
hey, you know, but I appreciate your time. I just wanted to express my concerns. and kind of see where this was gonna go.
Yes, sir.
And we will work with it. But like I said, I had some concerns.
And rightfully so, it sounds like.
I appreciate your time.
Thank you for taking time away from your day to come down and talk to us.
Not a problem, sir. Thank you.
Is there any more discussion on this particular ordinance, either from the Horseshoe or the public?
I'm still not clear. So regardless of the amount of windows that a store has, because one could have a lot more windows than others, they still need to keep all of it clear, not a
Well,
percentage.
just From
3 to
6 down to
6.
3 feet, yes, sir. So we've got line of sight, the officers responding can see inside as they're approaching.
Part of me is, I mean, and then I'm just thinking ahead where you don't have,
Sure.
we need variances or some things, but, and it may be a little flexibility if you just try to work a percentage or a certain,
We had looked at a percentage, but once again, the people that have to go out and write the tickets or enforce this, what mathematical formula are we gonna provide them? It's easier just to provide 3 foot to 6 foot, and then obviously if we've got some issues that we can address otherwise, but a percentage was actually thought about, and it would be a huge encumbrance upon the officers that have to enforce this to try to
well,
figure
I'm just
that out.
thinking, one store has 100 lineal feet of glass, and the next one has 40. But try to figure out, all right, we'd like to see at least 40 or whatever. If you have more than, I don't think it would, and that's something that other departments could, the fire, inspections and do at that time, but,
Well,
and then you get
again,
into a bigger
the-
store, Walmart
The intent
or-
of the ordinance, I mean, like Mr. Owen's store, he's got glass frontage almost all the way around. So it's gonna be easy for him to take down the signs and provide us a line of sight. Whereas the one at 10th and Post, they've just got one little side window and then the window as you're walking up to the door. So the only solution is to clear that one window in the door, and then we can see inside. So, I mean, each one of these stores are different.
well, but what if he has his ice machine, that's really the only place it's gonna work is in front of a small section of the glass?
Well, if
And he still has,
If he can move it to facilitate a good line of sight, then we don't have an issue.
with it still being in the area of the glass.
Well, again, if he moves it to the side, like Mr. Owens, he's got a little bit of room to play with, and we can still provide that line of sight walking up to it.
Is that line of sight of the entire store or just line in sight of the cashier?
The cashier and the front of the store, as you're approaching.
Okay, so it's not the entire store, it's just
No,
the
no.
so there is probably on a building that has glass on the side that doesn't obstruct, it could possibly obstruct the cash register and the entry because it's not in the line of sight.
But
I guess I didn't say that
what I'm
right.
getting as you're walking up to the door, and I'll give you an example. One at 10th and Post, they had, I don't know if they still do or not, a Budweiser sign, wrap, is that proper? That totally excluded the window. You could not see inside that store.
Doorway there, you could not see.
You could not see inside that store. And also, their windows on either side were totally obscured, and what we're wanting to do is pull those down, provide line of sight into the store.
Well, I'm just saying, so you got a store that's 100 feet long, and one of them's got 60 feet of glass, and the other one's got 40, right? And he needs to, there's a reason he needs to put a piece of equipment that's blocking just a small section of the glass, then they could be
Well,
giving him a harder time.
Obviously, if we go out there and he's got a piece of equipment, say Mr. Owens has got a piece of equipment there that's not giving us total, we're not gonna go out and write him a ticket as long as we can see inside the store. That's the whole intent of this. We want to be able, as an officer or a patron is walking up, they can look inside. Obviously, if the clerk's standing with their hands up, there's a problem. That's what we want to obtain. You know, and if we start putting percentages and things of that nature in the ordinance, it becomes an encumbrance upon the enforcing officials to be out there with a tape measure. And, you know, but if we walk up to the store and they've got their front door excluded with another wrap, that's an obvious violation. So
It's Mr. Olson, right?
Owen.
Oh, I apologize. Your shelves are in front of the windows?
No, sir.
No, okay.
What I was, in speaking with Mr. Officer Brown, my shelving runs perpendicular to my counters. My counter is this way, so my clerk has full range. My shelving runs perpendicular so that my employees can actually walk down behind the counter and they can see people in the store. Takes out all the blind corners, all the, you know, people hide, they put things in their pockets.
That's what I was gonna
Yeah.
go with, is that that is a concern that he brings up. So if the shelves do run, your counters here and your shelves run this way, the windows, and you want them to, because I don't know if the CAO is what we're gonna have to do with what it's written, but if he has to change them from perpendicular where they go, he won't, his staff wouldn't be as safe, they don't have the full view of the runs.
well, and plus too, none of his, and correct me if I'm wrong, none of his shelves, most of the shelves are 3 foot high anyway.
Exactly.
And they're
Mine,
not,
you can see over the
they're
top of
not
them.
gonna obscure anything, to begin with.
Plus, the way my store is set, I have a window on the north side, which is the way the shelvings run north to south. And you can drive by and you can actually see down. I don't think we will really have a problem. I just had some questions, you know, and you can see, like I said, you can drive by on Westminster and see my clerk clearly in the store. The windows, and I do have bars on the glass. That's for my protection, you know. But you can see clearly behind the counter. You can see the clerks. And I had some questions. Maybe I misinterpreted what Officer Brenham told me. You know, maybe I wasn't clear. He explained it well, but maybe I just took away from it something entirely different. And I had some questions.
Yes, sir.
And like I say, I am familiar with the one at 10th and Post where Sam was killed. I've been by that store many, and I've told my wife, again, we've been in this business 40 years. I said, that place scares me. Because you could literally be standing in the front door and could not see into
Not
that
see it.
store.
Yes, sir, absolutely.
And that's scary,
Yes,
both
sir.
as an officer, because I was an officer, and in the retail business. That's scary.
Yes, sir.
Because you're going in blind and wow. You know, you could be hurt or injured or dead in there, and it may take
Yes, sir.
2 hours to figure that out, unless somebody actually walks in the door.
Yes, sir.
And
Thank you, Mr. Owen, we
yes, sir.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? I appreciate the discussion on this, and obviously, it's just a public safety measure more than anything.
Well, as long as it has a little flexibility.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Any further discussion?
I make a motion to accept the ordinance as proposed.
I have a motion,
Second.
I have a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Motion passes. This is a new business public discussion, portion of our agenda. Does anybody have any thing they want to bring to the council from the audience? Hearing none, we will move into
Executive session. This will be discussion, consideration of one entering into executive session as allowed under 25 OS Section 307B4 to discuss McGowan et al. Versus City of Midwest City, case number CJ 2015-1802, and 2, in open session authorizing the city manager to take action as appropriate based on the discussion in executive session.
I have a motion. I I have a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? We are now in executive session, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be back.